Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So I'm now back with part 4 of this briefing of this bizarre connection that I figured out about in my 8th grade year of school and 3rd year of middle school, last year of middle school. So I know that, I don't know if y'all noticed, I know because I intentionally did it, but when I got to a certain page number, like 25, 26, I stopped naming the page number that I was on when I flipped to read, simply because the page numbers are a little messed up after like page 25, 26, or 27. Like it goes from 25 to 27, and it's sort of out of line, if you know what I mean. Like when I got to writing this and got excited on giving the information on the page, sometimes my brain, my thought process, and curriculum up here doesn't exactly work 100%, and I tend to mess up. So I did mess up on the page situation, the page number error. I'm gonna have to fix that, but technically if I were to have named the page number after that, it would have been incorrect. It would have been a page extra than what I was actually by math on. So technically I'm reading from page 33, which technically would be 32, so technically there wouldn't be 107 pages in all, there would be 106 in all until I add more, because there's more to add. There is by this point, I believe. I mean, we've only been in school now for 3 days, but I'm starting to see some things align how it makes sense, supposed to be all that. So yeah, we're gonna read from here, and I'm gonna hope to get out of middle school into freshman era of this connection thing, and go along from that information there. All right, so I know that at the end of the last video, I asked y'all the question about that question for girls, because only girls I feel like can technically answer that. I mean, a guy can answer it, but how accurate their answer is compared to a girl theirself from their perspective of it, I trust more. And if you don't know what that question was, you can go back to part 3 and watch the last 2 minutes of part 3. But anyway, I got the papers right here in my lap, in my car, and let's read on. Okay, so like same video length as last time, more or less. Let's see how far I can get. So I'm gonna start from right here, because technically, let's see here. I told you guys we were on 32. I'm assuming actually it had been 31. I'm just gonna read from page 31, the ending of it, and read 32. And if I actually remember through this, I did already read that, because it says I then started focusing on this connection in her and the group. Third page it says 31, technically it'd be 30, and page 32, because after I learned about it and became aware of it, I became aware of this connection, it made a lot more things make sense that had to happen. I reminded myself that Rick and Michonne got into a relationship that made sense to why I developed feelings for her, and it told me that we are supposed to come together, be together. I started watching a lot more of Walking Dead season 8, where we were in the timeline technically, doing the math at home, to be aware, and some in class, of what went on with Michonne through the season and Rick, and I've already read this page. It also explained why I've always had a big desire to be officially part of the group of athletic preppy kids. That's what I call them. Anyway, my brother doesn't like when I call them that, and I'll name a lot of kids that I know that are like in that kind of social group right here, but I'm not going to say any of their names, period. But yes, the girl who resembles Michonne is a part of those names. My feelings at that point began to grow stronger and stronger for her. She got the word that I still liked her in around March of 8th grade, and she began to get uncomfortable with it, apparently because I would never talk to her about my feelings, about those feelings, and when I was around her at like a football, basketball game, or in class, I wouldn't say anything to her because I was too nervous, too scared, too worried. And I guess she was thinking that I was trying to be weird or creepy or something like that. It made her uncomfortable. I'm not sure, and that's pretty much the question I had for women, for girls on here. If that truly does make you uncomfortable, if a guy absolutely has feelings for you, and especially how deep I'm describing them right here, and they don't say a word about it when they're around you, and you know it, and they know you know it. When she didn't realize, I was just nervous with it. I was a nervous person, still am. That's the reality of it. So I was misunderstood, but I haven't been misunderstood before in, very negative ways. So not surprised, but still hurt. By the near tail end of the year, the battle that we had been in pretty much the entire year, it was coming to a conclusion. The last main day of school, we all walked outside and towards the football field like we did at the end of 6th grade. When we got to the outside of the field, the coach had to make a speech before he let us in, and everyone ran into the field. That mirrors in the timeline when Rick and the group went out to the field that they were going to have, this final fight with the Saviors on. Negan and his army was on the top, while Rick and the group were on the bottom of the hill coming up, and it was sort of like a half bowl-shaped type of hill, sort of, the way I remember it. On the bottom, they were running up after the Saviors. Guns backfired on them. Eugene, he messes with the bullets because he's the one that made them, and I know what Eugene did to them. The bullets backfired on them. We ran into the track and field at full force after the coach's speech was over, while everyone handled fighting random Saviors. As they got to top of the hill, Rick went to, primarily handle Negan. On the other hand, for us, there was a bouncy house that was boxing inside. Literally, they had that for us. And it's crazy how I was the first to go in and fought a person who was tough as Negan seemed, honestly. They did, period. I got my butt handed to me for a second when I was in it. Then I bounced back just like Rick got tossed on the ground for a second, kicked in the, almost kicked in the stomach, when fighting Negan one-on-one. Another scary thing is that there was a tree that was right beside us, fighting, and there also was with Rick and Negan. I know I did beat my opponent, and I could have knocked his lights out completely. Honestly, I had that opportunity. I did. When he was on the ground in the most vulnerable, way, but I didn't. Because I honestly remembered that quote, "My mercy prevails over my wrath." After the fight, when I stepped up and forward, people were looking at me, and I just looked at them and said, he's had enough. He's had enough. Rick gave Negan mercy, so I gave that last knockout mercy. I'm the better person by not doing that, I felt. Shows that I have morals, I feel. Yeah, I'm the better person not doing that, and I did hurt my hand during that fight, so I sat by the tree to catch I kind of hurt my hand before that fight because there was a scab on my hand, I had gotten cut not too long ago, and it healed, kinda, and there was a scab that sort of peeled open as I was ranging my hand through my bag, and ooh, just kind of somehow my backpack sort of ripped off as I was pulling out and stuff. Just, it hurt. It was bleeding a little bit, Rick's hand was bleeding, and that's crazy. That mirrors that. I mean, it looks like it does to me. So I sat by the tree to catch my breath and, and my hand, let my hand relax, just period. let it relax, let myself relax. It was bleeding a little from some of that skin being rubbed off, in those boxing gloves, just as much as when Rick slit Negan's throat that he spared his life and told Negan, said to him. Then Rick made a speech, after that. I noticed that, Rick sat down and took a moment of a breath. Then an hour later, one of my good friends, the boy who resembles Gabriel, and a few others came to see if I was okay. And so I got up. Like I said, I'm terrible at reading. This is why I don't like reading, but I don't know any other way to give this information. So, and I could use an AI to just read the entire thing, but still, it wouldn't. Yeah. And so I got up and walked off with them. They congratulated me for that fight. After that day, everything seemed so calm and content. Everyone was chill and cool with one another. It was a good feeling. That was the same for them after they went back to the communities. Everyone was calm and sitting down. The war was over and Negan was beat. On the other hand, we were done with the year. Our grades and classes were beat for us. They were finished. We had won, just like Alexandria Hilltop Kingdom and Oceanside had. I was looking for a great new start for all of us when we went to 9th grade. Not the 9th grade academy, we called it. Because technically it wasn't 9th grade academy, it was literally just 9th grade, period. Freshman year. Entire year of freshmen. For me personally, when we graduated from 8th grade, I still hadn't talked to the girl that resembles Michonne about how I fully felt, but she had just grown more uncomfortable and a little separate with me, and I didn't even know it at that time. Not much anyway. I know that over the summer I was thinking about both her a lot and this connection with the new upcoming year. Alright, that page is over. I'm gonna lose where I am if I'm not careful, simply because, like I said, these pages are out of order, or the number is on it. So I can't guarantee that really, the next time I read this, I'm gonna really be in the accurate type of order when I let somebody read it. And I have let barely any people read it, and I think that is obvious why. Very obvious why. But anyway. Again, the summer passed and we came to administrative day, which was always was like it was mirroring Comic-Con, panel for us. One thing I knew for this new year, though, is that in season 9, episode 5, Rick Grimes left the show. I knew that completely. It involved me since I mirrored this story. I did not know all that much at the time how it was going to happen for me in school. School form, I called it, like a form, this form and that form, ways of happening, like in school form of happening to me. I did have a huge worry that it was going to involve me having to leave the school. I obviously dreaded that happening, as it really wasn't a matter of when, but exactly how. I didn't know. I knew, though, that by the time the first half of October that came was the episode time frame, technically, it was going to happen in it. Because I took season 9, I took pretty much every season where we were at, and I took, the school year that we were going into, and I lined it up parallel to each other what date falls on, what time frame in each scene, and that's how I sort of realize, where we're going into and where we were at during the timeline, because I don't want to be a person that has no clue. Okay, I know about this, so might as well figure out where we are, to at least know something is going on, you know what I mean? So I took that and tried to do that math and help me with Google to do it, honestly, because, yeah, it's hard. It's just hard without, some type of media helping you with it. I say media, if you consider Google media, technically it is. Google is probably like the king of media, if I'm being honest. Maybe TikTok is. I don't know. But anyway, where was I? I did have a huge worry that I was going to involve me having to leave the show. Or I leave the school. I dreaded that dropping, that happening. So it wasn't a matter of if, but exactly how. I didn't know. I knew, though, that by the time the first half of October that came was episode timeline, it was, timeline, time frame, it was going to happen in. That's exactly. I just decided to take a deep breath in and deal with it when it came on, was there. One person who I was looking forward to seeing was her. My goal for her that year was to actually finally talk to her and explain to her how I felt and why I haven't until then. One of the ways I tried it was in lunch when I wrote a note to her, and I sent a guy who I had met in the month of my arm's itching, of September, which we were in. I asked him to take the note, to her table, and so he went and tried to give it to her, and I saw over there as he was trying that she was shaking her head and apparently did not want to take it. One of her friends did end up taking it, though. They kept it for a little bit, apparently, and some girl brought it back to my table. I didn't know what they thought about it or anything, but I just went on. I started trying to focus more on the connection that was around, than anything else. At the beginning of October, though, I got word from my grandma that we had to move houses because the landlord said he needed more rent money, and he knew we couldn't afford apparently over $830 monthly because we were on a fixed income. It was clear to me right there, that this connection thing wanted to have me move schools because Rick left the show. I was in panic, and that point I didn't want to move. Obviously, had no desire to from where I was for anything. So my grandma and uncle started looking for a house that we could move in, that could actually keep us in the school that we were in, where the county we were, period. Next page. Bear with me. Alright. My uncle wanted to take us out of the county we were in, the school we were in, move us to his county. I rejected it and said I wasn't doing it. The last night that I had before they made a final decision to whether we were going to be able to stay in Coffee County, I didn't really want to give the county out. I just did. Well, maybe there's many of those counties in the world, so maybe it's not as deep as I think, or move out. I begged and I made a deal with this connection that if it let me stay, I would take on the rest of Daryl's story. 2 hours later, my uncle gave me the word that we were going to get to stay in where we were. I was so relieved, guys, and very excited. By the way, one thing about this, I have not said nowhere in here that The Walking Dead is real. If that is kind of what you have been thinking that I've been saying this entire time at this point, I want to put a counter argument on that and clear that up and say that is not what I've been saying, period. Not what I am going to say, not what this means at all. I'm not saying it's real. I know it's not real. I know it's a fantasy. I know it's just a TV series. I know it's fictional. I know that. It is not real. That is not what I am saying. I don't know how to make that any more clear. I'm saying there is some type of bizarre connection that I don't even know why it's here. Personally, I've not been studying for this entire time, but I know a lot more about it now than I did when I first figured out about it. Put it that way, because you learn. So I'm not saying this is real. I'm saying there's some type of bizarre connection that somehow, some way is between us and it. Or between me and the school, between us and school and it. Now anyone else here watching that's from an entire different county, different school, different all that, I ain't got a clue what's going on there. I ain't got a clue, you have nothing to do with this, period. That is not what I'm saying, nor explaining. Just because it has this bizarre connection to us with school does not make it real. There is a great boundary between it being connected to us here and making the claim that it's real. Because it is not. Just a strange connection, really. Mirroring things to us, through this story. Hope you understand that and don't have the idea that I'm trying to say it's real. Because back to it though. I knew when the first half of October was over that I, was going to be transitioning to Daryl, given that Rick wouldn't be there anymore. Going through the rest of his story in the main series, when I came back to school, I knew that I was in Daryl's position. At that point, when I got back from the weekend, my focus, or a lot of it, got back on her, the girl. I still wanted to talk to her and, figure out, what was going on between me and her. I know, though, that I had to keep most of my, a word that I can't even read here. Keep most of my attention on the story. You see, at that end of September, going into October, we had an essay that we were, supposed to be doing in English. I was behind on it, and it was hurting my grade. My grade in the class, my whole grade. I was starting to catch a failing grade, and the due date was soon. I was going into panic mode. This was at the same time that Rick fell off his horse, trying to lead a walker horde away from going toward the communities. When he fell off the horse, he fell on a piece of rebar, if y'all remember that scene, and it went straight through his side. He had to take off his belt and lift himself off it. That mirrored when I had to do, that mirrored what I had to do. I had to go days past, the due date of the essay in order to just figure out what all I was going, to write. Had to get a new page out. Put this one in here for the used ones already, because the one's already read. To write for it, when Rick pulled himself completely off the rebar, he crawled back to his horse and started trying to ride it out of there, him bleeding out onto the horse's fur, the massive horde following behind him. This mirrored when I was working my butt off trying to get the essay done and stop my grade from failing. And I did end up failing a test in a different class that same week, as Rick was struggling to stay awake and get back to the bridge. And it honestly makes sense why, for some reason, I felt so tired and dizzy during that time. Like, I don't know why either. It was so unexplainable to me. But now, technically, a while after that, I kind of looked at it and said, no, technically I can't explain this connection. There was no medicine I was taking. I don't take medicine, by the way. No food. I don't think any foods out there can make you dizzy and feel tired all the time, at least for 2-3 weeks. And I can't even explain why it lasted that long either. Through this, I guess, because this is the only thing that makes it make sense why it happened. As Rick was struggling to stay awake and get back to the bridge, I was struggling to not panic and get the essay done and, get out of the spell I was in. Turned in when Rick made it to the bridge that they had been building, He realized that the bridge had to be brought down to stop the horde. This mirrored when I realized that I was going to have to take a bad grade on the essay, so being late, just to save my class grade. So when Rick pulled out his Colt Python handgun, pointed it at the dynamite sticks in the center of the bridge, and said his last words before blowing it in half, I found him. Stopping the horde from reaching Hilltop Community. This mirrors when I accepted taking a bad grade for it, because I didn't have a choice unless I just wanted it to be a 0 period. Like a failing grade to save my own main class. I don't see one coincidence in this anymore. I'm going to turn on this light so I can see to read, because it's getting darker outside. Alright, so it mirrored when Rick chose to sacrifice himself and blow the bridge in half to save his friends and Hilltop. Everyone else in class already had it turned in and done and got from a C to an A on it. I ended up getting 50% on it? Yeah. My class grade, that's what I wrote on here, became a 61 with it, as a D. And that's a D now, yes. If you haven't been in high school for a decade. Or just a little less than a decade. I barely stopped it from failing my class. That mirrors when Rick barely stopped the horde by apparently, destroying the bridge and offering his own life. Now, secretly, when Rick destroyed that bridge and everyone believed he was dead around a mile down the river, and we all know this, I only say secretly, for back then if anybody else read this, and I didn't really want them to know that information because they weren't allowed to know that Rick survived. And I have reasons behind that, and there's reasons to this connection behind that. At least they couldn't know it yet. the bridge, and everyone believed he was dead. Around a mile down the river line, the bridge, Rick washed up on the bank on a mud pit. He was half alive, exhausted. I, on the other hand, survived my class grade from failing it in the last minute. The 61 as the class grade kept my passing score barely alive. But when Jadis Ann saw and saved Rick laying on the riverbank and took him off, to another community, and we all know who the community that was, the Civic Republic Military, the CRM of Philadelphia, is where they took him. Heading to the she was heading to, the community she was heading to. The same day I survived that grade and, just made it through what I made it through, I bumped into the girl who mirrors her, and no one else was around her. No one else was around us. She said something to me, but I barely heard her, so I can't say that what it exactly was. I was tired then, very tired, and that's around where my tiredness ended, by the way, and I started coming out into, just getting better, put it that way. I guess maybe I had an allergy infection, I don't know. If I had a sinus infection, my nose would have been running bad too, so. Still unexplainable, but anyway. There's a lot of things that are in this. Okay, well, next page. And this is nearly as long, well, not nearly, but another 7 minutes. I'm going to have to cut this off to save my data. So, after the bridge, start of the Whisper arc. Although, knowing how she felt towards me then and how she does now, I'm assuming was either negative or two-faced coming from her. I know, and I'm talking about the girl that mirrors Jadis. Her attitude, or at least what a lot of people tend to think when they associate with her. Me, myself, the experience I got. I know that it was a Friday, and I went off with my uncle to his house, even though I didn't really want to. The next Monday, though, when we all, came back, I was then Daryl, like in his story through the rest of the 9th grade, 10th grade, and, most of the 11th grade. After the first half of October, when the second half arrived, I knew that the Whisper arc storyline was going to be starting up with the villains like Alpha and Beta. Something, though, I did on the, sideline was I tried to take a map of the school and map out where technically kind of like communities like, the Alexandria Hilltop and all that is sort of like technically would be parallel located. Because I was curious, wanted to figure that out. I mapped out where each, building or community would technically be and located. I don't even know if I completely accurate did it still, but I got close, if anything, which I did end up getting on an okay idea of, while at the same time I was keeping up the timeline and where we were at. Also, still thinking about her. And y'all know about who I mean, her, the one that I have deep feelings for. Even now, and then everything was going smooth and quiet after that first half of October. Everything was basically calm and chill when November came around and we all went on Thanksgiving break. Then came back, I noticed that she hadn't came back the first day after. I just figured at the first that she was sick or something, like that. However, One day turned into 2 days, then 3. At that point, I was getting very worried and concerned about her. I did not know why she hadn't came back, yet. I started to question if she moved schools, literally, or something happened, though I didn't think that was the answer because a lot of her friends were there, so it didn't make sense. After about a month of her not showing up, I was very, very worried. Just couldn't stop thinking about what's going on here. How's she doing? Is she okay? Is she deeply sick? What's going on? What's going on? And not showing up, I was very and I started to lose a little of my interest and encouragement of showing up, every day to school. It was a couple of weeks later that I was talking to one of my the guy who mirrors Gabriel on Snapchat, and I brought up this subject and I expressed how I felt to him and her, and he told me that she had gone homeschooled. My heart started hurting a little bit for a moment. I didn't know why she had gone homeschooled. Couldn't explain that myself. Or if she was coming back, and if so, when. I had many questions, but not many answers. After that night, my feelings for her started growing even more. Just somehow being separated like that, it just, I don't know, strengthened them somehow, some way. I don't know. You think it'd be the other way around, bro. I'm not sure of the way around, but that's just what the case was. I didn't know. Let's see here. Started to strengthen feelings for her. Started growing even more. I started to feel down. A lot at school because she wasn't there. For me to actually be, excited to show up. Period. I felt like I had no reason to be there. So, I only got a minute left to talk. Go ahead and say this, so just to try to make sure the timeline sounds a little more better to y'all, if it makes sense of how this adds up. So, Walking Dead aired on AMC and started back in 2010, right? And when we were in 8th grade, the final season of The Walking Dead aired on AMC and AMC Plus, season 11. Walking Dead timeline on TV generally is 3 years ahead of us, our time. Meaning that it's got like 3 years of planning for us. And so that's, I guess that's a lot of planning for it to get over, right? So, this is my graduation year, 2026, 2027, so you do the math. And I took kindergarten twice, by the way, so yeah, I did that. But anyway, I got to end the video shortly right here. If you want to do that math, you tell me when I started the 1st grade, so you tell me how far Walking Dead was at that point when I first started 1st grade. Now, I did say it's 3 years ahead of our time, so I guess that gives you an idea. It was probably on its 3rd season when we started 1st grade, but if I'm a little off on anything, you tell me. You tell me with that math. But anyway, you guys have a great evening, and I will be back with part 5 when I get to it. Yeah. So if you're still in school, hope everybody has a great school year. Peace out, guys.